How's it going, everybody? Daner here with North Central Coins, and welcome back to another episode of the most rare and valuable coins in Canada. Today we're going to be discussing a few Canadian pennies from the years 1978 and 1979, which, if you didn't know, have almost 10 different errors or varieties that you can look for that can make them worth some pretty good money. These Canadian penny varieties are extremely significant and sought after coins in the Canadian numismatic world. And because this coin has so many different variations and was made after the year 1960, it makes finding them pretty simple. And this is one that you actually have a pretty decent chance of finding if you somehow have some pennies and they make their way into your pocket change or you are coin roll hunting. In this video, we will explore the historical context surrounding the production of this rare and valuable 1-cent coin and delve into why it holds such importance in Canadian numismatic history. Additionally, we will discuss any distinguishing and identifying features, its significance among collectors, and also the potential value if you were ever to find a legitimate example. Before I do get into this, I would really appreciate if you guys would smash that thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and also ring that bell notification so you can stay up to date with my new content. And make sure to stay to the end of the video if you would like to find out how much you could get for one of these 1-cent coins if you did ever find one. And then without further ado, what do you say we get right into it and discuss the 1978 and 1979 Canadian penny errors? Let's get it, guys. Canadian pennies, just like all other Canadian coins, feature the portrait of the reigning Canadian monarch at the time of their issuance. Queen Elizabeth II's likeness graced the penny's obverse starting in the year 1953. Over the years, her image underwent several noteworthy design updates. The first of these alterations occurred in the year 1965, following another in the year 1990, which introduced a fresh perspective courtesy of artist Dora DePadre Hunt. Finally, in the year 2003, Susanna Blunt's updated rendition of Queen Elizabeth II was introduced, showcasing the evolving artistry on Canadian coinage. One distinctive commemorative exception took place in the year 1967 as part of Canada's centennial celebrations. During this special occasion, a unique reverse side was introduced featuring a captivating depiction of a rock dove. This artistic masterpiece was created by the talented Canadian artist Alex Colville. Now, what makes the 1967 penny so noteworthy is this is the only commemorative design where the iconic 1937 maple leaf was not used on the penny. It's an interesting piece of numismatic history that sets the 1967 penny apart. However, the penny's journey eventually concluded in the year 2012. Due to rising manufacturing costs and also inflation, the Canadian Mint ceased production of the penny. It is still considered legal tender in Canada, but it is no longer used in daily transactions. Now, an intriguing facet of Canadian pennies lies in their edges. While most pennies have a traditional round or smooth edge, Canadian pennies minted from 1982 to 1996 featured a distinctive 12-sided edge. This unique design element might seem quite insignificant, but it actually served quite a noble purpose, which was to aid the visually impaired in identifying the coin with ease. However, when the Mint faced challenges in applying the 12-sided shape to the 1997 copper-plated zinc coin, they returned to the familiar round shape. But this transition is an interesting note in the penny's design history, emphasizing functionality alongside aesthetics. The eventual fate of the Canadian penny had long been a subject of debate, primarily due to concerns over its production costs and perceived lack of practicality. In mid-2010, the Standing Senate Committee on National Finance initiated a comprehensive study on the future of the 1-cent coin. Ultimately, on December 14th of that year, the Senate Finance Committee recommended the removal of the penny from circulation. Their argument rested on the premise that a century of inflation had significantly eroded the value and utility of the Canadian 1-cent piece. Despite evidence that a decreasing percentage of Canadians were still actively using pennies, there were only actually 37% that were still using pennies as of a 2007 survey. The government did continue to mint the coin, approximately 816 million pennies annually, equating to a staggering 24 pennies for every Canadian. This excessive production was largely a consequence of pennies vanishing from circulation, as people either hoarded them away or simply refrained from using them. In the year 2011, the Canadian Mint's production of pennies soared to 1.1 billion, more than doubling the 2010 figure of 486.2 million pennies. By late 2010, it was estimated that the average Canadian had stashed away as many as 600 pennies, effectively removing them from circulation. The pivotal moment arrived on March 29, 2012, when the federal government announced in its budget that the penny would be phased out of circulation in the fall of that year. The decision was largely attributed to the startling fact that producing a single penny cost 1.6 cents, a clear financial burden. The Canadian Mint struck the last penny for circulation at their facility in Winnipeg, Manitoba on May 4th, 2012. And you can actually find that penny at the Bank of Canada's museum in Ottawa. Now, most importantly, existing pennies retained their status as legal tender indefinitely. However, they were withdrawn from general circulation on February 4th, 2013 in accordance with the Currency Act. With the elimination of the penny, cash transactions in Canada underwent a significant change. Instead of individual item rounding, the rounding process now applied to the total bill of sale. Totals ending in 1 or 2 are rounded down to the nearest multiple of 5 cents, which is 0. Totals ending in 3, 4, 6, or 7 round down or up to 5 cents, and totals ending in 0 or 9 round up to 10 cents. Though it did seem strange at first, eventually this adjustment became the new norm for Canadian cash transactions, marking the end of an era for the beloved 1-cent coin. Now, before we get into the 1978 and 1979 pennies, I just briefly want to go over machine doubling with you guys so you have a pretty good idea of how to identify the errors on these coins. Now, machine doubling occurs when a coin is struck by the coin press more than once in quick succession, or there is a slight shift or bounce in the coin press during the striking process. It can also occur due to deterioration in the die, and some of the characteristics of machine doubling are caused by a misalignment of the coin die with the planchette, a minor shift or vibration of the coin press during the striking, or a loose or slightly damaged or deteriorated die. Now, the visual characteristics of machine doubling. Machine doubling results in a few key visual characteristics. Parallel or shelf-like doubling. The doubling lines tend to be parallel to the original design, creating a shelf-like effect. Genuine doubled dies usually show doubling in various directions. And a lack of spread. Unlike true doubled dies, machine doubling does not exhibit the spread or separation between doubled elements. Instead, the doubled features appear squeezed together. Now, machine doubling does not always enhance the value of a coin. In fact, sometimes it can actually make its desirability a little bit less among collectors. Collectors usually seek coins with strong and clear design elements, and machine doubling actually detracts from the coin's visual appearance, but it is still an error or variety that can be attributed to coins, and certain dates are well known for having machine doubling, like the 1980 Canadian nickel and the pennies that we are discussing today. Now, when it comes to the Canadian 1978 and 1979 pennies, you are looking to identify machine doubling on the date. There can be several different degrees of doubling, and they are differentiated by the amount of digits in the date that contain this machine doubling. So depending on how many of the digits are affected, the value generally increases, and they are evaluated from right to left. So the doubling can start on the final number in the date and happen only on that number, or it can work its way digit by digit to the left and can affect each or all of the different numbers in the date. Depending on how many of these numbers have the doubling, the value typically increases, but the severity of the doubling can also increase its potential value. Let's say you have an example of this coin where the final 2 digits are attributed with doubling, but it is much more significant and severe than another example with the entire date attributed. It might actually be more desirable to collectors due to the severity of this error. Some of the details and specifications for the 1978 and 1979 Canadian pennies. They're composed of 98% copper, 0.5% tin, and 1.5% zinc. They have a weight of 3.24 grams, a diameter of 19.05 millimeters, and a thickness of 1.55 millimeters. The coins were designed and engraved by Arnold Mockin for the obverse and G.E. Kruger Gray for the reverse. The edge is smooth, they are non-magnetic, and the die axis is in metal alignment, as is the standard for most Canadian, Australian, and British coins. Now, when it comes to estimating how much these coins can be worth, they are not super valuable on the low end. You might be able to get a premium for them, especially because they are Canadian pennies. I usually say when it comes to coins, it's not how much it is worth, it's how much you can get somebody to pay for for it. That doesn't mean that you should rip people off, but a lot of the time people are willing to overpay for things because they simply want to add it to their collection. Not me, not myself. I have certain things that I go for and like to collect, but everybody has their own preferences. So what I'm going to do is go through and give you guys the values for each of the different attributions of doubling that you can get on these coins. So the 1978, if it has just a doubled 8 on it, is worth around $10 for an MS64, but it can be worth all the way up to around $70 for an MS66 example, which isn't too much more than the regular 1978. Now, as you start to increase in severity of the machine doubling, if it has the final 2 digits doubled, so the 7 and the 8, you're seeing about a $10 to $15 price jump. It can be worth around $20 for an MS64 and all the way up to $85 for an MS66 example. Now, it doesn't get much more valuable if you only identify the 3 final digits in the date. So if the 9, 7, and 8 all have doubling, it can be worth around $25 for an MS64 and $87 for an MS66. So that is a $2 price jump. But the most valuable of all of the varieties that you can look for is with the entire date containing the machine doubling. So all of the digits in the date 1, 9, 7, and 8 will have machine doubling. It can be worth around $30 for an MS64 and $118 for an MS66. Now you might be thinking to yourself, I'm probably never gonna find any of these super rare air coins, but I can tell you that these are much more common than you would think. I have found quite a few 1978 and 1979 pennies with machine doubling, some with the entire date, some with single digits, some that are super severe, and some not so much. And a lot of the time when I come across Canadian pennies, they are in pretty decent shape, especially the ones from the 70s and 80s, because they didn't see too much circulation before they were pulled out in the year 2012. So now let's get into the 1979 double variety pennies. First is the single doubled 9, so that is the final digit in the date 1979 will have machine doubling, can be worth around $10.90 for an MS64 and all the way up to $453, which is actually the exact same value as the regular 1979. So there is no premium if you only identify doubling in a single digit. And the value pretty much stays the same, honestly, as you go up. If you can identify doubling for the final 3 digits, you do see a slight price jump. It can be worth around $10 for an MS63 and all the way up to $60 for an MS66. So maybe $1 more than the regular one. But the variety that you do want to look for is all 4 of the digits containing doubling, and you will get a pretty decent premium for this coin. It can be worth around $15 for an MS64, and the highest graded known example currently is an MS66, which is evaluated at $131. If you were to find one and it scored an MS67, you could easily be talking $1,000 penny, because the regular 1979 without doubling is around $500. And if you identify machine doubling on the entire date, that coin is worth about twice as much as the regular 1979. Now, what do you guys think about these Canadian penny varieties? What would you ever do if you found a legitimate example, or if you ever have found any of the coins discussed in this video? Let me know down in the comments. I would love to know. Also, I would really appreciate if you guys would smash that thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and also ring that bell notification so you can stay up to date. But I think that is pretty much going to do it for this one, folks. So until the next one, everybody, peace out and have a good one, y'all.